Hello everyone, welcome to RAD TV, the monthly show from Rights and Democracy. Tonight we're going to be talking about some exciting upcoming events and two of our campaigns, Jobs, Justice, Climate, and our Raise Up Vermont campaign. First, we wanted to report a few exciting updates since our last show. One was that RAD celebrated its 1-year anniversary on Labor Day, which is a really exciting day. We had a couple of celebrations. We celebrated with an event in Warner, New Hampshire, and Middlebury, Vermont, with Bernie Sanders, which is a great thing. Really exciting. We had over 700 people join us in Warner and over 1,000 people in Middlebury. Also speaking at the events were RAD endorsed candidates, David Zuckerman and Marie Cordes. Tonight, I'm joined by two RAD leaders, Logan and Laura Mistretta. We've been busy since then, planning for a bunch of upcoming events and two of our big campaigns, as well as this upcoming election. But let's start with the Raise Up Vermont campaign. Kate, you've been a leader in that campaign, and why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Kate Logan. I'm a member of the Leadership Committee for Rights and Democracy, and I'm also a member of the Chittenden County Organizing Committee. I work as a field representative for AFT Vermont. Just started. I'm going to be helping to organize CCV faculty into a union because they have some concerns about the way that their work conditions don't necessarily provide for the best learning conditions for their students.
All right. Okay. So we're just wondering, I guess, what is the Raise Up Vermont campaign all about, and what made you get involved?
Yeah, so the Raise Up Vermont campaign is really about making sure that people make enough money for their work, that they're able to provide for their families, that their workplace provides for the conditions that they need in order to care for their families adequately. And so it's a combination of making sure that there's an adequate wage in Vermont, making sure that families have family and medical leave, and making sure that we're putting the right workers' rights into law in Vermont.
Great. Great, that sounds great. Right in line with everything that Rights and Democracy is really pushing for. So some people say that raising the minimum wage would be bad for our economy, and what would you have to say to that?
Yeah, I think it's important to have an answer to that question. I think that's going to be something that people are going to be asking a lot in the next year as we push to raise the minimum wage in Vermont. And I think there are two immediate responses that I would have to that. First of all, right now, low-wage employers are being subsidized by taxpayers. They're paying their workers low wages, and then those workers need programs like Medicaid and food stamps and Section 8 housing. And so one of the things that we all really believe at Rights and Democracy is that you shouldn't have to work full-time and not make enough money to live. And you shouldn't have to work full-time and live in poverty. And so that's one issue, is that low-wage employers are essentially subsidized by taxpayer dollars and social programs. The other thing is that paying your workers more means that they'll spend more money in the local economy. That's definitely true of people who earn less money, is that they're more likely to shop in their communities. And if they're making more money, they'll be spending it in their local economies. And so it'll help bolster Vermont's economy overall.
So that little extra money that they'll be making won't be going to investment funds and getting stashed away in bank accounts for many years.
No, they'll be spending the money.
It's probably going to move through our economy.
Yeah.
Generate some productivity. That's great. Well, it sounds like some good answers there. Of course, this past Tuesday, RAD co-sponsored an event at the Unitarian Universalist Church in Burlington called a framework towards a just economy that focused on a report by our partner organization, Public Assets Institute. You spoke at that event. Could you tell us what that was all about?
Sure. So Public Assets Institute in Montpelier has done the deep analysis of our economy, Vermont's economy, that needs to be done in order to identify the economic landscape in Vermont and recommend best economic policies for moving forward toward what we're calling a just economy. And that's essentially an economy that takes people's needs as part of the founding framework for structuring a public policy around the economy. The event on this week, I was one of the speakers. Part of that, the reason I was asked to speak is because I have some experience being a low-wage worker in Vermont, being a person with a family, and having experiences like not being able to pay the bills, not being able to pay for my rent, there not being adequate affordable housing available, there not being adequate affordable high-quality childcare available. And when you find yourself in a really sticky situation, like when a family member has an illness, like I have in the past year, and you're at a low-wage job where you qualify for Medicaid, if you take a job where you make just another $1 more, you'll find yourself ineligible for Medicaid and unable to pay for your family medical expenses. I also found myself in the situation where I couldn't take time off from work to care for my child who was hospitalized. And so I shared my story as a way to illustrate the exact things that Public Assets Institute is talking about in their framework for progress.
Yeah, and to highlight how the economy at the moment isn't really generating what it could.
Well, it is actually generating what it could, and that's one of the great parts of the analysis that the Public Assets Institute has done, is that they've shown that in the last two periods of economic growth that we've experienced in Vermont, 42 to 50% of the economic growth has gone to the upper 1% of income earners in Vermont. So it's not that the economy hasn't been growing in Vermont, it's that the results of economic growth are being channeled into the wealthiest people's pockets, and that growth isn't being distributed broadly across the state to everyday people.
And that's where the framework for progress comes in.
Yeah, absolutely. So the framework for progress that Public Assets Institute has developed just gives what they think are the best strategies for developing a just economy in Vermont. One of those is making sure that every Vermonter is able to meet their basic needs. Another one of those is, that we use evidence-based strategies for achieving those goals, evidence-based investments. So it's not like just because we're asking for the economy to be just, it's not that we're just appealing to like our moral sentiments about this. Public Assets Institute is really advocating that we do use our best social science evidence to point us in the right direction of where we can make the most efficient and effective investments in a public economy. And finally, another thing that they're asking for is that we restore public confidence in the state government by developing more transparency and by making some public investment in having staff, government employees whose jobs are dedicated towards program review, so that there's some accountability within the state government for the way that their programs are being developed and implemented.
Yes, accountability.
Yeah.
What a wonderful idea. And so for the next big deal for the Raise Up Vermont campaigns coming right up, October 2nd at the Berry Labor Hall at 5 p.m. Anyone interested in working with RAD on raising the standards and for working people should come on down there. We have a poster hanging, I believe,
Right here on the
right
front
in
of the table.
front, one of these two posters up here. Sorry. Yeah, and so Rights and Democracy is a multi-issue organization. Because we see issues of economic justice to be directly related to racial, social, and environmental justice. Related to the Raise Up Vermont campaign and this framework for progress, Rights and Democracy has begun working with people all over Vermont in partner groups for a campaign we've been calling the Clean and Green New Deal for Vermont that builds ideas around moving forward here in some ways to help and be more national model for moving in the direction we need to go. Well, first off, I guess why don't we have Laura chime in and tell us about yourself and what made you care about these issues and want to get involved with Rights and Democracy.
Sure. Yeah. Thanks. So to just focus in on the environmental issues, since that's the focus, the main part of the campaign. But I really started learning about the environment and climate change in particular in college. Studied environmental science and policy. Got really concerned about the predictions for the future around what our climate will look like in just, say 2050 even, and the impacts that will have on our economy, on our society, on future generations. I had to get involved, and through political organizing, that seemed like the best way to really make a difference on these issues in a big way, which is what we need to do, is make big changes. And so I got involved in organizing on my campus, doing divestment, and then have been involved in environmental organizing since college. I guess particularly why I got involved with Rights and Democracy, the political system can be really frustrating and disheartening. And, Bernie's run for president was incredibly inspiring. He showed that we really don't need to do things the way that, the main parties say we need to do it. And I think Rights and Democracy really, I know Rights and Democracy really operates in that vein of we can harness the power of the people to make the change. We don't need to rely on corporations. We don't need to rely on, these entrenched interests that are controlling our world right now. And so, you gotta start local to make big change. So I was pretty amped to get involved with Rights and Democracy. And in this particular moment, there's really no better time for Rights and Democracy to have gotten involved in environmental issues. The events that are taking place in North Dakota right now are incredibly inspiring and transformational. And RAD has jumped in, was part of the Solidarity event last Tuesday in Addison County to shut down the pipeline work site for the day and participate in that fight. And we're going to keep things going with our event coming up, but we'll get to that in a bit.
And you were there that day?
I was not, unfortunately. I had to work.
Okay.
It was during the work day.
Okay.
So, but there were some, a number of.
Looks like a good day.
Yeah, I followed it on Facebook secretly while I was at work. So.
All right. And so also there's an event coming up on October 10th, formerly known as Columbus Day. Can you tell me about the new name?
Yeah. So we're preferring to refer to October 10th as an Indigenous Peoples Day, and we're not the only ones to do that. I was reading up a little bit about it today, and it looks like it really got started in 1992. That was 500 years after Columbus supposedly discovered the New World, and that narrative has really just excluded, the fact that there are and have been Native peoples on this land for centuries. And that rather than discover a new land and bring people to this wilderness, he actually kind of precipitated a genocide of Native peoples. And those impacts are still being felt today by the Native Americans in our country and elsewhere in the world. So by renaming it Indigenous Peoples Day, you know, we're really trying to honor their presence in this history and the fight, you know, particularly we're choosing, it's a great opportunity to highlight the events taking place in North Dakota and stand in solidarity with Standing Rock and all the, you know, the great work that's happening out there, which is being led by Indigenous peoples.
Put a little focus back maybe where it's deserved to be put.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, well, protecting our natural resources is pretty high on my list of concerns.
That's good.
Thanks for being involved.
Sure.
So can you tell me what's about the clean and green New Deal?
Sure. Well, I think we should talk about the event first, probably, and then.
Oh, yes. Okay.
Does that work?
Yeah.
Cool.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So the event is really exciting. Here's a poster for it right here. Yes, that's the right one. And so we've been planning a this march and rally. The name of it is People and Planet Over Profit, which I think really sums it up pretty well, and also helps, you know, gets into the Vermont clean and green New Deal. But our plan right now is, you know, we'll be gathering at the Davis Center on October 10th at 5 p.m. On UVM's campus, and we will be marching to the Doubletree Hotel in South Burlington. The reason for that is that there's going to be a gubernatorial forum taking place that night at the hotel. And so it's really a great opportunity to gather in front of this hotel and hold a rally and really highlight the opportunities that Vermont has to you know, really take charge and build an economy that works for people and the planet, and not just increases profits and doesn't give the money to the majority of the people, but actually invested in everyone and in our natural world. And you know, it's exciting. We've been working with a pretty broad coalition in terms of getting involved with Lake Champlain International to highlight the water quality issues that are really big around the state. You know, students at UVM with the Renewable Energy Network are going to help us turn out a bunch of students, bring some young energy to the table there. Peace and Justice Center, and more groups to come, we hope.
Yeah, and so we can get the public view. There's going to be a lot of media at the Doubletree for that discussion there.
Definitely.
And the more people that we can get to show up on the 10th, the better.
Definitely.
Get that on get that on TV.
Yeah.
And so really pushing for that clean and green New Deal with this little march that we're going to get to.
Hell yeah. Yeah,
that sounds great. So how can people help?
Well, for this event,
yeah.
So in terms of this event, I mean, first of all, you can show up. It's going to be fun, and you can also really help recruit others to come out. You know, the more folks we can bring, the better. We're really trying to, you know, impress upon the gubernatorial candidates that Vermonters care about the environment and want to see a clean and green New Deal for our people and our planet. And so you can help by phone banking or, you know, just inviting your friends on Facebook. We might even be canvassing on it at some point. So it's going to be a family-friendly affair. Kids are welcome of all ages, or, you know, and kids at heart are welcome of all ages too.
Encouraged.
Yes, highly encouraged. So it'll be a great time, and at the event, you know, a big part of it is to also unveil and kind of pass out and distribute the platform for the Clean and Green New Deal, which is really exciting. You know, it's a really broad platform that speaks to both. You know, it speaks to a whole range of issues. You can't just talk about the environment in isolation. When we're talking about transitioning away from fossil fuels and prioritizing people and the planet, you know, that means that we need livable wages for all workers in Vermont. We need affordable housing in the state. We need to protect our forests and, you know, move away from fossil fuels in all ways, including the investments of the state. Strengthen the economy with sustainable industries. There's a lot of just like hard work that needs to happen to truly move our society away from fossil fuels. So we need skilled workers that are going to get paid good wages to do that work here in Vermont and keep that economic activity here to reinvest in our environment and our people. So more details to come around that. So that's why you really should also come on October 10th, because you'll get the deets then for sure.
Get the full rollout.
Yeah, we're working on it right now. So.
Yeah, well, it's a big campaign. It's a big deal. We all know the environmental factors that are facing the world and Vermont are huge, and change kind of needs to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And finding a way to balance that between the economy and all the products that we depend on every day is going to be tricky.
I would push back on that really quickly.
Go for it, please do.
I think it's been kind of a myth that it's either economic growth or protecting the environment. We're seeing right now, like Kate was just saying, we have economic growth right now, but it's not. Most of it's going to the 1%. We need a different economy. And we can have a robust economy that also protects the environment. Local sustainable agriculture is better for the local economy and better for the environment. People putting up all the solar panels that we need to power our homes or weatherize our homes so we can reduce the amount of heating, energy we need in the winter. It takes a lot of work.
Localize the energy production.
Yeah. So there's a lot of work to happen, and that's going to require, that's going to generate economic productivity. So we can have a growing economy and protect the environment, which is, a win-win. So.
Sounds great. And so people can get involved with the Clean and Green New Deal by showing up for the march on the 10th, and then also by going to radvt.org and just checking out everything we've got going there. So I guess all that's left is a couple of announcements about the events that we have coming up. We've already highlighted a couple of them tonight. First, we'd like to mention October 2nd. So we have a photo of that. This is a Raise Up Vermont Town Hall and Chili Feast with David Zuckerman. Okay, and that'll be in Barrie. That's coming right up on the 2nd. So join us down there if you'd like. We've got on the 10th, as we previously mentioned, the people on the planet over profit and march and rally. So we're going to hope that a lot of people show up to that. So on October 27th, we have an event coming up that we haven't fully prepared yet, but it's going to be a panel discussion on a vision for fair development, which is an initiative that Rights and Democracy is currently developing to create a more democratic method of development in cities and towns throughout the state. Right now, it's kind of beginning its focus in Burlington on a rather large project, the Burlington Vermont Town Center Mall project, which has the capability of changing the face of the city entirely. So that's going to be, again, on October 27th. You'll be able to find more information about that on our website, radvt.org. So meet up with us at radvt.org. Find us on Facebook at Rights and Democracy Vermont. If you enjoyed the show and the topics that we're talking about, we have a whole list of endorsed candidates at radvt.org/candidates. They have all shown us that their goals for Vermont align with our own. So we really stand behind them. So check them out. Make sure you sign up to vote in November. Anything else, guys?
No, not for tonight.
Okay.
Thanks, Grant.
All right.
Thanks, Grant.
Well, thanks, guys, for joining. It was a wonderful show.